This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com. Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods.
Welcome to Voices. My name is Joy Livingston, the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. And today I'm very excited to speak with André Hueston Mack, a heavy hitter in the wine industry. He started out in the financial world, but left his traditional 9-to-5 to work in the food and wine industry as a sommelier. While living in Texas, Mack was awarded the sought-after title of Best Young Sommelier in America, and he went on to work for some very prestigious restaurants, one in California and then in New York. And from there, you seem to have exploded into everything because you're in hospitality, author of books, you hold talks like TEDx, you're a YouTuber, a winemaker, a foodie, a graphic design company owner, an educator, a mentor with Unify. You've created some apps even, I saw. I was like, wow, okay. And I was a bit scared to start a conversation with you because I'm not sure if I can do, justice to your entrepreneurial spirit in such a small window of time. So,
Well, we'll get as far as we can get. No, that's great. No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm really, really happy to be speaking to you. I've actually stalked you online.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know. You're good at it.
This is awesome. So I'm going to start with my first question, which was, when you first decided to leave Citicorp, what was the catalyst that made you pursue wine instead? Was there a process you went through? Did you take courses first? Did you have any help from friends or a mentor to help you make your decisions?
I didn't have a mentor. I was inspired to have wine in my life by watching old episodes of Frasier. I wasn't a wine drinker. So after working at Citibank and, taking severance and spending, days, weeks, months on the sofa, there used to be around the same time each day, there used to be back-to-back episodes of this show called Frasier. And, it was something about those two brothers. They were pompous. They loved wine. They had, a sherry ritual. There was something about them. You know what I mean? Just helped me say, oh, you know what? You should have wine in your life. It felt like they made me feel like I was missing out. And it was just wow, okay. I will, yeah, okay. I'll take whatever money I had. I didn't have a lot of money or, that kind of thing of not willing to spend a lot of money on wine. So I'd go with, whatever budget I had, $12, $15. And, that show really gave me the courage to walk into a wine shop for the first time in my life.
I love that show. I actually, to be honest, I kind of like the dad more.
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many good characters on the show. And they were just the first part that invited me in kind of thing. And then that was it. It's I had never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now based off of watching that show or from sitting on the sofa. I didn't know where wine would take me. For me, it was just oh, my life is missing something. Maybe it's wine. And then as I started to dig deeper, peel back the layers of the onion, you realize that I was wow, this is really interesting. There's so much information here. Wine is just, it's an amazing thing. And that was it. I caught the proverbial wine bug, and then it was off to the races. And this was quite a, not that long. I mean, it was long ago. It was over 20 years ago, or right around 20 years ago. And, there weren't a lot of resources in Texas. I was living in Texas at the time. I think WSET was remotely, the exam was given on a proxy. So, for me, I was trying to get as much information as I could. The internet wasn't fully up and running. I think it existed, but not everybody was on it. And so I remember calling a restaurant in Chicago and asking, could they email me their wine list? And they couldn't, but they offered to fax it to me.
Oh my!
So they faxed it to me. And, for a lot of it, wine was I didn't take any courses. I did the entry level for everything. And I think that was, a lot of that is self-starter. Like you get your books, you get your stuff, you study, and then you go to a 2 or 3 day seminar and they go over the same stuff, and then you take an exam, and that kind of proves how much you know. But for me, at the beginning, there were no mentors or anything. I just kind of hopped right in. It was just something, I started to work at better restaurants. I went back to restaurants after working in finance, and I ended up working at a couple of steakhouses that took wine pretty seriously, and that was it. I was all in. There was no turning back.
Awesome. Yeah, no, inspiration struck. So you were working at these places, and you caught the wine bug, as you said, and then eventually you became the sommelier, and you won this Best Young Sommelier Award, which is really sought after. And you went to work for a place called French Laundry in California and Keller's Per Se.
Correct.
In New York, managing an award-winning wine list of 1,500 plus wines. Was there ever a point, this question, this is Voices, I got to ask these things, but was there, due to your race or because, people this is not what they expected a sommelier to look like, did you experience hardships or pushback with customers or coworkers? What did you respond if that was the case?
What I would say to address that is that being a Black man all my life in America, like being a Black man in the wine business is no different, right? Like there's certain things that you choose on how you go about life.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for me, I was interested in being around people who were into wine. Was there some pushback? Maybe yes, maybe no. But, I showed up at the best restaurant in the world. And yeah, sometimes I would go to the table and people wouldn't think that I'm the sommelier. But I really got to choose how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Right. I could be angry. I could be all of those things. But to me, that was just more fuel for the fire.
Right.
I could never contemplate and in my opinion, waste time on whether I didn't get something or not because of the color of my skin. I get to choose that. Right. And I think for me, I chose just to keep pushing.
Get on with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Keep pushing along and not worrying about that. There's nothing I could do about it. So for me, like, I'm sure maybe there was, or maybe I didn't get this because of that. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't stop there, right? I show up to a wine shop anywhere in the world to sell wine or whatever it might be. I don't know why they don't buy my wine, right? But so like that, I try not to it exists.
Yeah.
I don't think that I ignore it. I understand what's going on, and I just keep going. It didn't stop me.
You're just going to do your work and do the best.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, then people can say whatever. But you know what I mean? Like even for this very podcast that we're on, I'm on the podcast because of the color of my skin, right? Not really on the merit of my work, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's a little one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'd love to speak to everybody. Yeah, I could be upset that at the beginning you did say that I was a heavy hitter in the wine industry, but I'm only on in February because it's Black History Month, and I'm on a show to talk about diversity. Whereas someone else who's maybe done the exact same thing as me, or maybe less, or whatever you have it, they don't carry the burden of diversity. You see what I'm saying? So the last person that was on this podcast that didn't look like me, no one asked them about diversity. And so that to me is part of I wouldn't call it a problem, but could also be part of the solution.
Right.
You know what I mean? It actually kind of goes back to the whole thing of slavery has been over 400 years, but yet and still, as a Black man and a Black people, we still carry the burden of slavery.
Right.
And that, you know what I mean? So it's not my job to carry the burden of diversity in this industry when I only represent less than 1% or 0.5%. The conversation doesn't just start with me. It has to be everybody, right? You know what I mean? And for me, I felt like I've done enough work that validates that I should be on this show, not just in February, but any other time of the month.
I'm gonna stop you just for a second. But I honestly didn't put 2 and 2 together. It was Black History Month. I really didn't realize that.
No. It's nobody's bad, right? But I need to say, I feel like I need to say something, right? You know what I mean? Where it's like, well, wait a minute, all of my work that I've done in this industry is really kind of denoted into only to one thing. Like I can only be on this show if it's about diversity. You see what I'm saying?
You do make a good point, and I've actually never looked at it like that because we have so many different shows, and this being the diversity.
No, I get it.
We because it's so important nowadays to highlight underrepresented communities.
And that's great. And that you're ready, and you should, right? Like if that's the stance that you want to take is highlighting them, then highlight them for their merits of what they've done, not because it's a show about diversity. And then what? And then the other question is like, oh, what could we do to make the wine industry more inclusive? Well, that's just not a question for people who look like me. It's a question for everybody. It's a question for all of your listeners and all the people that come on your show. And so for me, that's it's this problem that I have with all of it is like, it can't just fall on me.
Yeah.
Right. It just can't. And so I get it. Nowadays it's important to highlight, and that's great. But like, to highlight and put in a certain little box to me is unfair, and I'll speak for myself. It's unfair to me personally, like, I'm not for whoever, but for me, considering the amount of things that I've done in the industry, that I can only be on a particular show within this network about diversity. And you see what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of a slap in the face, right? To say that the only thing that I've done, the only reason where I'm really on the show is because of what I look like.
Okay, well, just before I go back to questions, and
you can keep it in if you like. I'm totally fine with that.
Let me listen to it first, because I really sound
no. I mean, but these are the conversations, right? These are conversations. I'm just being really candid. These are the conversations that we all need to have if we want this industry to be inclusive.
Well, then let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Based on what you just said to me. Mm-hmm. The premise of, if I understand, of you being on this show it's only because of the color of your skin. How would you, because I'm the producer, right? So I spend a lot of time looking for people, and so it really falls on me. So my question to you is, how can I fix this? You know what I mean? How can I?
Yeah, well, I guess like, for me, if we're talking about me in particular, I mean, I don't know what other shows you have or whatever, but like, the fact that you chose me to be on your show to talk about diversity is unfair to me. So when I start to think, is like, oh, wow, okay, it's Black History Month, it's February, it is, I'm on a show about diversity. And for many years, this is what I got to talk about. Not that I make over 100,000 cases, not that I represent anything. All the things that you talked about, they all become minimalized because I'm on a show about diversity. When I've done way more than a lot of the people that are on the show, who are being celebrated for the accomplishments that they've done within the industry. It's not clouded by race or this dark topic about whatever.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And I think for me, and let's be honest, like, I wasn't gonna do this podcast because I don't do these anymore. Right. And then I said, you know what? That's not fair. Let me come on. And the right thing to do is to talk about it. Okay. To say, hey, just a hint, maybe just a nudge, like, hey, this is kind of how this is, right? It's like, for some people, I think judged on their experience and the things that they've done, maybe like, okay, yeah, they can start off because maybe they haven't done much, but we want to highlight these people. I'm you know what I mean? I'm being singled out. Okay. For my race once again, which is something that I didn't, you know what I mean? Which is something that I want to get away from. But and that when I say get away from, it's like, there's nothing I could ever change about who I am, right? I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud of all the things that I got to do in this wonderful industry. And it wasn't just because I just hung out with people who looked like me. It was because I was a part of this industry. And the fact that, like, within that industry, I get talked about only because of what I look like, and that I get it. I'm not supposed to be here. I get it. There's not a lot of people who look like me. I get it. There's not a lot of people who, they're not used to seeing someone like me in those roles, right? I get that. I understand the power in that. I truly do, right? Because there's thousands of people that I mentor every single day, and not all of them look like me. I understand what all of that is, but like, in instance for this, and just for the whole conversation, is that if you if you want to support those people, then support those people, not diminish them to 1 month or to one show. And if we're really going to have the conversation about diversity, then we need to have the conversation about diversity with people who don't look like the people being oppressed or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like that, like, those are the people. The industry is, I think, making wine, I represent 0.5%. Right. People who look like me. So the fact that you would ask me what I could do about diversity and not my neighbor, right, in the Willamette Valley, and ask him what he can do, then we'll always be having this conversation, and with nothing getting done.
Right.
And I'll get off my soapbox. I'm not angry or anything. I'm very passionate. I just wanted to say that. I know you weren't expecting that, and you're like, oh my God, I'm nervous, and like this guy's landing to. I'm not landing to. I just wanted to say that particular thing.
No, I do actually appreciate it, because so often most people, when they talk on the podcast, they don't actually tell me what they're actually thinking or how they feel. So I can listen to this at any point later and try and, because it hits home now, but it will hit home more when I sort of pick it apart and I try to, take the best out of it. And I think you are somebody who I get why you're a mentor now, because I think I actually learned something here from you, which is useful and good for the way that I think and why I do things and my decision process. So I think it's fascinating. But
thank you. Okay. Like, I just needed to say that on the onset. I get what you're saying. You can ask whatever questions you like about whatever, because when you said I have to ask this because of the name of the show, and then that's when I was like, all right, maybe I can say what I really want to say here. Just like, hey, like, you really don't have to, but I understand what the show is, and I agreed to come on the show, and so I know the rules of the game, so I'll answer those questions. But I just wanted to say what I needed to say, kind of thing.
I kind of just wanted to ask you about wine, YouTube, and like stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's great. You can ask me anything. Like I said, I know the rules for the show, and when you said at the beginning, when you're like, I only want to ask these questions because I have to, huh?
Okay, so moving on.
All good. I don't want to mess your show up, Joy. I'm here.
I'm dying here. Okay, tell me about your wines. Okay, so you're a winemaker, and
I know it's hard. Like I'm good, but it's like, all right. I was like, wow. Okay, all right.
You have a wine label or several wine labels. Help me understand.
Yeah. I started a company called Maison. Actually, it was called Maison Noir Wines back in 2007, and I was leaving the restaurant business, and I had a great job. I would say one of the top 10 jobs in the world, being a sommelier per se, running the beverage department. Those aren't jobs that you walk away from, that many people walk away from. And I think for me, the big thing was like, I wanted to continue to learn about wine, just outside of the confines of the four walls of the restaurant. I just wanted to. It was something else, and I think learning about wine, I felt like the natural progression was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go make wine, start a company that could scratch the itch of me wanting to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have more creativity in my life. I felt like, sommeliers are more like curators. They collect people's stories, they put them on a list, and that's kind of it for creativity. And I thought by making this move, I could do all of this. I guess, the push that I needed is that, now my wife, my girlfriend at the time, wrote a New York Times top-selling book called Service Included about working in the restaurant, which was more of a love letter. It wasn't a tell-all. I like to say it was a tell-some. It was done very classy and gracefully. But that, I think that gave me the oomph to jump off the cliff, in a way of just saying, hey, I could do this. I want to go accomplish this other thing. And so I left. I had no money. I didn't write a business plan. I wrote an email to everybody I'd ever worked with saying, what I was going to do was go to make wine. And it was through the good graces of the people that I had met and relationships that kind of really made it come together as I kind of it was all kind of finagled and Frankenstein together at the beginning, just because I had no plan. And, wherever I had free terms, no terms is where I went. I made wine in other people's winery, and that's kind of how it all started. I built the company off of receivables. So if I didn't sell any wine I didn't eat, it really took 3 years to get it off the ground. So a lot of stop and start. I made wine in Washington State, Oregon, Napa, Lompoc, so Southern California. And, my heart really lied in Oregon. I think for me, all the great wine lists that I had a hand in building, they bookend on red and white Burgundy. So that was kind of my first love. And when I thought about, domestically who was making great Pinot, I kept circling back to the Willamette Valley. And then, the stars kind of aligned. A guest of the restaurant who I was friendly with, he was a movie producer. I ran into him on the street, and he was like, hey kid, how you doing? Last time I talked to you, you said you were, making wine. I said, yeah, I got a project that I'm doing out in Napa, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, well, I just bought a vineyard, the Seven Springs Vineyard in Oregon, and you should come check it out. Call my assistant and she'll book you a ticket and you can come out and check it out. And that's kind of really how I started. And, that seems like a lifetime ago. And that was my deal. I mean, we're sold in, 30 something countries, something like that, almost every single state.
You must be very good at multitasking because 3 years and you've been doing other things in that time as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's amazing, when I think about like how much time I spent at work when I, ran I worked for Thomas and ran the beverage department. You think about how long you're gone, and the first thing you notice when you when you leave is like how much time is left in the day.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning, a lot of it relied on me. I mean, I don't really sleep much. I just am all in. I found a partner who understands that about me.
You also have a bunch of kids, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have four children. I have 4 boys from 13, 11, 6. Actually, Pickle turned 6 next week, and Rye just turned 3. Yeah, and so no, I mean, like, I think I realized that you can have it all, but you have to, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean that you have to manage it all.
Right.
And that was, I had to learn that in therapy, right? You know what I mean? Like I really had a hard time delegating, where I got to.
Oh, are you talking about like relinquishing control?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of all the different projects and just not micromanaging everything, or?
Yeah, and I think that all really started. Should I wait for that? I should wait for that. Can you hear the car horn going off?
It's New York. It's okay.
Okay, good. That's how, and you ready? And that's how I would really do a podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, the bus is stopping. It's New York City. Yeah, no. When I worked at the French Laundry, I was one of the floor sommeliers. And then when I moved to New York, I became the beverage director. And now I had like 4 or 5 other sommeliers work underneath me. And that was a challenge for me. It was, I kind of came from that background. If I had to ask you twice, then I might as well do it myself.
Yeah.
And also like, I think something mentally where it's like, oh, I'll go move these boxes because that was what I knew. That's what was easy. What I should have been working on was this and that. And by going to therapy, I felt like I really started to understand how to do that. And like all the good things that come from that. And so that was one of the first places that I realized like, oh, okay, I don't need to, I didn't want to depend on anybody because they would let me down. But then also I realized that I can't accomplish the things that I want to accomplish just by myself. I'm only one person.
Yeah.
And so I did a really good job of that by myself for a long time. And then I realized that like, there's other things that I need to do. And so
to have that trust, Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to build it, I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing is I hired a personal assistant, and that was about 6 years ago. And that made my whole life better, right? Made me a better father, made me a better husband, made me a better business person, made me a better boss, all because, I could actually focus on the things that I needed to do. I felt like I was, disrespecting people's time. I couldn't write back in an email in a timely manner. And so, to have someone help me manage my life on all sides was like great. But that, that to me, that was the key. I think for me was the key is like being able to delegate allowed me to be able to do a lot more. I took a lot of, for 10 years, I traveled over 250 days a year.
Okay. So I also had a question about Get Fresh Crew, your design company. Okay, let me get the timeline straight again. Okay, so when did you start this winery, this wine label?
I started in 2007. Yeah, 2007 I started. Our first vintage was 2007. We had some wines from Oregon and some wines from California. 2011,
you started Get Fresh Crew.
We officially started it then, but I had been already doing the work. So I designed all the wine labels for my company.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is because there's got to be some overlap here. Like it seems like a good creative outlet, but also you get to work with like-minded people. You get to work on your wines with your own company.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was all the things that I had to teach myself to do because I didn't have any money that I ended up being able to use to make money, right? So it's like, I remember we were talking, I was like, I needed a graphic designer. So I was asking my friend, I was like, hey, you have a recommendation for a graphic designer? He's like, oh, we love these people. And so I go take a meeting with them And afterwards, they're like, oh, it'll be $25,000 per, label design or something like that.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? And I was like, I don't even have $25,000 like liquid for grapes, barrels, like none of that, corks, glass, So I was like, all right. So I ended up, buying a used iMac on Craigslist and digging in. And that was kind of a big deal. It took me years to realize that I liked doing that, like that I felt at ease doing that. And actually still to this day, sitting behind my computer and bringing something to life through design is almost therapeutic for me. It's really amazing for me to be able to like space out. Like I don't get to do it as much just because we have so much stuff going on, but it's definitely something that I love doing. But yeah, I started a company called Get Fresh Crew, and we've been doing design work for a lot of industry people for years.
No, I find it I think it's great actually that you're able to have that overlap with your other products, Actually, speaking of, okay, so you talked about creativity and being artistic, and so I watch a lot of YouTube. That's probably how I ended up interviewing you. And okay, so you have a YouTube channel, but I noticed you're actually on other channels as well. Your channel, it seems, is very personal. Like we've got trips, we got friends, we got food, you've got stuff you like. It's a really great channel. I also saw you on Bon Appetit, which I thought was awesome. You did something through the grapevine.
Yeah, so with Bon Appetit, I have 2 shows. I have a show called World of Wine with André, and so it's like educational, kind of fun. It's fun, like breaking down some of the barriers, how to decipher a wine label, all those kind of things. I think we just did one on wine tools, and I think sparkling wine for 15. So I've shot, probably about 12 or 13 of those.
I've been watching them.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so funny because I would have never thought that they would be like such a big hit. I think there's quite a few that are over 1 million views, which is so weird to me. But and then they gave me another show called Through the Grapevine, and that's really fun for me. It's challenging because normally I'm getting interviewed instead of doing the interviewing. And I also feel like, wine sets the tone, so it's a celebrity wine tasting with a twist where we sit down.
Well, they look like they're having a great time.
No, totally. Yeah, we were having a ball. Yeah, we have
I watched one with Kevin Hart and I was like, oh my God, this is so funny.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. And then on my own, I started my personal YouTube back in the day, and it was just something fun to do. And I think for me, it was more of just showing a glimpse of my life. Like we moved to Europe for 4 months after our third son was born, and I was on the road a lot. Right. So I had less, I didn't have my restaurant business. I didn't have all those stuff. And so I felt like I had time. I shot and edited all of those. So I didn't even hand them off to anybody else. So it was one of those things where I just wanted to do.
You're preempting my questions because I really wanted to ask, do you do it just for fun? Is it something for your personal brand or just because you enjoy it? Or, do you have other people edit for you? You know what I mean?
No one edited it for me. It was just me. I did it for fun and for brand. It was to be able to learn something was just really fun to be able to do, and to be able to edit all of that. And then there goes the whole delegating thing again, right? It's
yeah.
If I gave it to someone else, what you really realize is that a lot of the creativity is in the edit, how you tell the story.
Exactly.
And if I handed it over to someone else, then I couldn't really tell it. And a lot of it was personal. But I basically filmed 3 years of my life.
Yeah.
And so I only got around to editing those particular videos that you see that are up there. But a lot of it is me going to the airport every single week.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And then wherever I would land, whether that be Sweden, France, Indianapolis, or
Well, I think yesterday I watched you a day in Seattle or something, Do you when you're done with your videos and stuff, even the ones you edited, for example, you spent hours and hours editing. Do you worry about things like views?
No, because it's like everything else. You just start. I think people get discouraged by how many people see it. And that's not it. I think for me, I always kind of relate it to music, underground music. And you discover when you finally discover an artist you like, it's kind of cool to be able to go back and see their other works of art. You know what I mean? Their earlier stuff, and they can kind of binge on it, right? And I think,
oh my God, that's so true.
the same way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, I do that.
yeah. And so that's what I love. That's what I kind of loved about it. So for me, I never worried about the views. And I'm only on any of these social media platforms because my friend Gary Vaynerchuk told me to get on them. Like way back in the day, he was like, "Hey man, you on Twitter?" And I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Dude, you should get on Twitter." I said, "Okay." You know what I mean? Like all of it. "Hey, you're on YouTube?" "No, I'm not on YouTube." Like whatever, like that kind of thing. But we've been friends, and he was always talking about technology. I had never met anybody who owned a wine shop that had 8 IT guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It was like on another level. And that's the reason why I got on any of the platforms. And so for me, it was always just like, hey, just experiment. We put them up there. I mean, we have way more views on Bon Appetit, but that's their channel that they built. For me, people are slowly discovering, and I think there'll be stuff there. And we're getting ready to reboot. So now, as I realize that, like, I can't do everything, and now, I can talk a little bit more about what I want. Then we have people go back and editing the videos, and I mean, which is cool. I don't have time to shoot anymore because, I think we're negotiating a couple of shows so that, so you'll see more of me on primetime TV, but like less, you know what I mean? So I won't be able to shoot. I'm shooting a lot of my own stuff, but
Okay, so
should be fun.
I have 2 more questions. It was one more question, but now I have 2. So
Okay. All right, cool.
you said you were going to do more stuff, and like, what is it that you're going to be doing? What is it you want to do that you're going to do now that you can do it?
Yeah, no, I mean, everything. I mean, during the pandemic, I just built a whole restaurant group.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, it started with one little hand bar. All I wanted ever was to be a part of the New York City restaurant landscape, to be a part of that history. And, moving here and, dining out a lot and doing a lot of that kind of stuff and working where I worked at, it was something that I was like, oh man, one day I want to own my own place. And it was like this, is all I want. It was like this little hand bar. It's like I'm sitting in it now. It's 400 square feet. It seats 22 people. And, we do all American charcuterie. We have the world's largest selection of country hams. And, we do American cheeses, and we have, old American wine back to the 50s.
Wow.
And all in a little neighborhood place. I lived like, I don't know, call it 84 seconds from here.
That's awesome.
And so I started that we opened in January 2020, and then the pandemic hit. So we were open for 2.5 months. And then, to be honest with you, we haven't had a solid year underneath our belt, right? 2020, we closed down and didn't open back up until October. And then 2021, we didn't open until August because of mandates. So we weren't allowed to open. But in that time, next door, we had already had the lease there, and we wanted to do, a provision store, so a kind of bougie deli. And then in between, in like 19, we bought a wine shop. So everything's all on the same street. We bought a wine shop.
Okay.
One night I got drunk and bought like a stone mill, a large 26-inch stone mill. It took them 2 months to build. And then we decided to start our own bakery, because when we were open for 2 months at the ham bar, what we realized is that we couldn't get good bread. Like, a lot of my friends, they make good bread, but like just getting it, I mean, logistics of New York, but just getting it there was something different. So yeah, we just did a whole bunch of stuff.
How there's just so much of it. How do you logistically stay on top of everything? Because, okay, I know you said you have an assistant, but...
Oh, well, I mean, that's just my personal thing. But there's people, I mean, I have like 30 something employees.
Yeah, of course. But like, still, how do you stay on top of like every single thing? Like, that's a lot of stuff. Like,
well, I think if you have, maybe the way my brain works, but like you have a point person. That person is responsible for that. I meet with that person. That person's responsible for that. I meet with that person. I think it's just what you put a priority on. Like, I love doing this. This is great. Like what we've been able to do in my neighborhood. I mean, we have 7 businesses on one street.
That's amazing.
And then I put my office. So all my office on the East Coast for everything is here on the street. And yeah, no, I mean, it takes a lot, but like, I think being able to let go and let other people be responsible and run those things are great.
Yeah.
But, there's sacrifices, right? I don't have a lot of free time. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not how it works for me. That's not how I work. I don't go on vacation.
Right.
Actually, the V word is a bad word in my house. So they all know. They're like, oh yeah, Pop's working. Okay. All right, cool. But I mean, I go with them, All right. So wherever we go, I go with them, but I stay in the hotel and work or wherever we're at. And then they go out and do their thing. But it's been, it's fun. Like I enjoy doing this part. Like, I don't know what else I would be doing.
But the last point I really wanted to touch on today that I really wanted to talk about was education. Because again, I was watching you on one of these videos and I saw you on this thing it was titled Spoon University.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
You were talking to this young girl and she was really responding to you.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys were tasting. Yeah, it looked really cool. And I just, I wanted you to talk about your sort of connection to education and how did you get into it? How do you feel about teaching people? Do you have special strategies that you always try and employ? Because you seem to really have a knack with talking to younger people.
Yeah, I think it just all comes from training. Like, this is what you did in the restaurant. Every day you'd get up in front of the staff and talk about wine, talk about a region. You would give classes once a week to educate the front of the house staff or whoever wanted to attend. So teaching really had to be a part of it. I didn't realize that I would do it, And then also, I think it's the way that you convey it. Like for me, I just try to put it in layman's terms, everything, and relate it to popular culture. And I think that relates with young people. And also, I think the stereotypical thing is that that you're wearing a suit or you're all buttoned up. Maybe you have an ascot. There's this real pretentious thing that people think goes on with wine. And for me, I show up. I got tennis shoes on. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah,
yeah. Just come relaxed and and I think being able to explain wine in that way, and I've done it so many times that you try to be able to break it down to its smallest particle, and all the dinners. I traveled 200 over, and I think I did 292 one year, but all of those are going to dinners, like putting on winemaker dinners, like speaking in front of people, trying to break down things in a way that are relatable in a way, talking about palate fatigue, right? And people are like, what? And it's like, well, you remember like chewing a piece of gum for like 20 minutes and then it loses its flavor. And they're like, yeah. And I said, then maybe you took it out of your mouth, put it on the side of your plate, and somehow you're like, oh, there's some gum there. And you picked it back up and put it in your mouth. And then it had flavor. It had more flavor than it did had more flavor than it did at the end. That's palate fatigue. So just being able to break it down and explain it in a way that I think that people can understand. And I think sometimes, it's the messenger too, right? It's like being at ease and saying, wow, this guy can learn about wine. Maybe I can too. The power of seeing someone that looks like you too helps. But yeah, it's funny about the young people. She was really great. I had a really fun time there. I think I left there and got straight on a plane too. So went to go somewhere, but it was here in New York. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was. I really enjoyed that. So, well, this brings us, I think, to the end. I don't want it to end, but it has to end. There's so many things that I could and would love to ask you. You have been an absolute pleasure to talk to.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. I know you're a busy, busy man, and I can only say I wish you all of the best.
Thank you, Joy. I'm going to go hide in my car because that's the only place. It's the only place that I'm like alone. Normally I take all my Zoom calls in the car.
Oh, God.
People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like I can't go anywhere. And I have to park the car around the corner because all my employees know my car looks like.
Do people sort of point and say, look, there's a crazy guy talking to himself in a car?
Yeah, and I can't go home because they're all like, I used to work from home. That was crazy.
Well, with 4 children, I can imagine that.
Yeah, we just had to, it's like, hey, when I'm wearing this cowboy hat, Papa's invisible. Okay, you can't see me. Don't talk to me. Nothing.
Does that work?
It used to work earlier. Then now it's like, oh, Pop thinks he can't see him. We can see him. We see you, Pop. You know what I mean? They're really funny. But that was about 5 or 6 years ago. So they're really funny about it.
That's sweet, though.
Yeah, no, they're great. Awesome, Joy.
Have a great day.
All right, you too, Joy. All right, you have a good one.
You too. Bye.
All right, cheers.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.